Story 1, Rage Against the Machine. The music and themes are still as relevant now as the day it was released. Story 2, Nina Simone Wild is the Wind. The Cure, Disintegration. A Tribe Called Quest Low End Theory. Funkadelic Maggot Brain. Story 3, Carole King's Tapestry. My mom used to play it while cooking Sunday dinners, and now I do the same with my daughters. It is like a beautiful musical inheritance that keeps getting passed down. Story 4, Close to the Edge, yes. Abbey Road, The Beatles. The Queen is Dead, The Smiths. Disintegration, The Cure. Exile on Main Street, The Rolling Stones. Blonde on Blonde, Bob Dylan. Are You Experienced? The Jimi Hendrix Experience. Weezer. The Blue Album, Weezer. Sweetheart of the Rodeo, The Byrds. So Peter Gabriel. Carrie and Lowell Sufjan Stevens. In Rainbows, Radiohead. Pet Sounds, The Beach Boys. After the Gold Rush, Neil Young. I could go a lot longer, but I think this is a good starting point. Story 5. I Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. OK Computer, Radiohead. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, David Bowie. To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar. Story 6. Appetite for Destruction. Bloom Beach House. Bitches Brew, Miles Davis. Operation Ivy. Out of Step, Minor Threat. Thriller, Michael Jackson. Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones. Frankenchrist, Dead Kennedys. Yankee Hotel, Foxtrot, Wilco. The Night, Morphine. Purple Mountains. Story 7. Elvis Costello, My Aim is True. Talking Heads, all early albums, but I will say Fear of Music. Bob Mould Workbook. Story 8. Disintegration by The Cure. Songs of Faith and Devotion by Depeche Mode. Nothing's Shocking by Jane's Addiction. Mezzanine by Massive Attack. Story 9. Tool, Fear Inoculum. Start to finish with no pausing. Actually, all of Tool's albums start to finish with no pausing. Story 10. Animals by Pink Floyd. Addressing Class Warfare. Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Dealing with a friend's mental illness. Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall were already mentioned. Story 11. Metallica S&M. It was recorded with the full San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. As someone who played viola, then bass, it is just so cool. It is one of the few CDs I still have. It is great to listen to from beginning to end. Story 12. The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. It is a rock opera, one of my favorite rock operas, actually. Story 13. Throwing Copper by Liv. Classic 1990s album that you could not walk a college campus without hearing from some dorm window. Story 14. Tori Amos. Little Earthquakes. Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet. Green Day, American Idiot. Jeff Buckley, Grace. Story 15. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. A Dramatic Turn of Events by Dream Theater. Moving Pictures by Rush. Black by Metallica. Story 16. I listened to the entire Queen discography from the earliest album to the last. No other music for a few days while driving to and from work a few years ago. The most captivating musical experience of my life. Their best songs range from great to amazing. Story 17. My Bloody Valentine Loveless. Mayhem, de Mysteries Dom Satanas. Ringo Death Star self-titled. Men I Trust, Uncle Jazz. Obsequii, The Palms of Sorrowed Kings. Geraptith, El Mundo Frio. Tokyo Shoegazer, Gaininzaka in 4 Seasons. Nirvana, Nevermind. Celtic Frost to Mega the Rayon. No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom. Deaf Heaven, Lonely People with Power. Story 18, The Wall. Dark Side of the Moon. Sgt. Pepper. The White Album. The Who's Tommy. Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. Miles Davis Ascenseur pour l'échafaud soundtrack. Grateful Dead's Europe 72 Tour. Grateful Dead's Bear's Choice. David Bowie's Moonage Daydream soundtrack. Story 19. The Mark, Tom, and Travis Show, including all the stage banter and humorous jokes. A timeless classic that helps you avoid taking life too seriously. Story 20. Aphex Twin. Selected Ambient Works 1985 to 1992. Morcheeba. Big Calm, At the Drive-In, Relationship of Command, The Prodigy, Experience, Story 21, Ghost Note Symphonies by Rise Against should be heard by everyone. It is a soft, powerful album without the band's trademark yelling or rocking. Violins, acoustic guitars, and even a ukulele accompany songs that critique society or address abuse. It is also the best recording of Savior the band has ever done. Story 22. Nonagon Infinity, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Polygondwanaland also mentioned. Neanderlades and usually just a t-shirt John Frusciante. Data Doom Frankie and the Witch Fingers. The Builders and the Butchers self-titled. The Devil and the Almighty Blues self-titled. You Don't Mess Around with Jim Croce. The Dark Third Pure Reason Revolution. Out of the Blue Electric Light Orchestra. Flow State Tash Sultana. America self-titled. Story 23 Hybrid Theory Linkin Park. Meteora Linkin Park. Avenged Sevenfold. What's the Story Morning Glory Oasis. Enema of the State Blink 182. Red Hot Chili Peppers discography. A Million Miles an Hour Oliver Francis. Worms Porter Robinson. Every Said the Sky Elenium Song. American Idiot Green Day. Dawn FM and Starboy The Weeknd. Mud Whiskey Meyer. Town Line Aaron Lewis. Bottles and Bibles Tyler Childers. Seattle Nomads. Stony Post Malone. 17XXXTentacion. Lost in the Waves Landmarks. Human Resolve. Dying is Your Latest Fashion Escape the Fate. Story 24. Belly Button by the Jellyfish. Songs from the Wood by Jethro Tull. Close to the Edge by Yes. SGT. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. Story 25. Ones I Haven't Seen Here Yet. Marvin Gaye What's Going On. Stevie Wonder Songs in the Key of Life. The Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die. Sex Pistols Never Mind the Bollocks. David Bowie Ziggy Stardust Hunky Dory Low or Heroes. Prince Purple Rain. Sign O' the Times. Diamonds and Pearls. Public Enemy Nation of Millions. Fear of a Black Planet. Story 26. Brian Wilson Present Smiles / The Beach Boys Smile Sessions is the finished version of the album from 2004, but Smile Sessions is the original Beach Boys recordings arranged to resemble the finished album. Both versions have their merits. I recommend watching the 2004 concert DVD more than anything else. For those who don't know, Smile was the album intended to follow up the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds was critically acclaimed, but it flopped commercially. It didn't help that Capitol Records did not promote it in the United States and instead promoted a compilation album of older songs. Brian took the lack of sales as a failure and decided to try to one-up Pet Sounds and compete with the Beatles, who were beginning to make SGT. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Both bands had a friendly rivalry for a short time. In the meantime, Good Vibrations went #1, which led Capitol Records to basically give Brian a blank check for Smile. Long story short, the Smile Sessions fell apart for multiple reasons while Brian's mental state was collapsing due to drug use and undiagnosed schizoaffective disorder. They had no choice but to cancel the album because it was overdue and costing too much to make. 37 years later, Brian's solo band encouraged him to finish the album with the help of Van Dyke Parks, the lyricist for Smile. It clearly lifted a huge weight off Brian's shoulders after all those years. Story 27. Failure, Fantastic Planet. Pink Floyd Animals. Grateful Dead Anthem of the Sun. Tristeza a Colores. Agalah Marrow of the Spirit. Story 28. RTJ4 by Run the Jewels. It was released 5 years ago, but it has become increasingly politically relevant over time. Story 29. 808s and Heartbreak by Kanye West. Off the Wall by Michael Jackson. Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. Swimming by Mac Miller. Illmatic by Nas. Relapse by Eminem. Ladies Night by Kool and the Gang. Just a few. Story 30. Abbey Road by the Beatles. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. OK Computer by Radiohead. Blonde by Frank Ocean. Nevermind by Nirvana. These are just some of my personal favorites, but everyone should definitely experience them at least once. Story 31, Weezer Pinkerton. The Get Up Kids. Something to write home about. The unicorns who will cut our hair when we are gone. Iron Maiden somewhere in time. Music is strange though. My taste is not very good. Story 32, Circle Songs Bobby McFerrin. Dancing to the Flute David Parsons. Chaos AD Sepultura. Mama's Gun Erykah Badu. Story 33, Live at the Old Quarter Town's Van Zant. The story is that the bar was so packed that people would pass money down the row, and later a beer would make its way back to them. Story 34, 10,000 Days by Tool. Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang Clan. These two are some of my favorite albums to listen to from start to finish. Story 35, The Battle at Garden's Gate by Greta Van Fleet. The solo in Weight of Dreams is worth the price of the album alone. 10 by Pearl Jam. Just an absolute classic with no weak tracks. Story 36, Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Fly by the Chicks. Diamond Eyes or White Pony by Deftones. Story 37, Kraftwerk Man Machine. Likely one of the most influential recordings of the last millennium and continues to be. Story 38, 13th Step, A Perfect Circle. The Gorge, live, Dave Matthews Band. Well-Adjusted Beanbag. Stockholm Syndrome. Derek Webb. For Huey Lewis and the News. Story 39, Joshua Ray Walker, What Is It Even? Story 40, Life in the Wires by Frost. Still Life Blackwater Park by Opeth. We Like It Here by Snarky Puppy. The Phosphorescent Blues by Punch Brothers. Gypsy Punk's Underdog World Strike by Gogol Bordello. Story 41, Some Albums That Have Not Been Shared. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young Deja Vu. Cat Stevens T for the Tillerman. Radiohead Kid A. Tool Anima. 9 Inch Nails with Teeth. Battle Yumthang. Sturgill Simpson Sound and Fury. Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the Wu-Tang. Jay-Z The Black Album. Adele 25. Story 42, King Crimson was great and had a kind of new sound at the time. The first time I heard Boston, and yes, it was really eye-opening. Story 43, The Race for Space Public Service Broadcasting. It is one of the best concept albums of this generation, not just a collection of songs. Their best single track is probably Night Mail from a later album. If we include works from earlier generations, then The Kick Inside by Kate Bush. Story 44, ZZ Top's first album. The Black Crowes, The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion. Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. Story 45, Pain of Salvations in the Passing Light of Day. This beautiful album explores the experience of the lead singer contracting a flesh-eating bacteria and nearly dying. It features introspection and conflicting emotions about his life and loved ones. The music is amazing progressive metal but remains accessible to general audiences. Story 46, Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Ride the Lightning by Metallica. The Chronic by Dr. Dre. Upsin by Meshuggah. Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg. Story 47, Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. It is raw, honest, and it hurts in the best way. Everyone should listen to it at least once with full attention. Story 48, Ladies and Gentlemen, We Are Floating in Space by Spiritualized. Micah P. Hinson and the Gospel of Progress. Everything after Rubber Soul, including that album by the Beatles. Led Zeppelin 1. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy. Check Your Head and Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. That is a start. Story 49, Damn, I Am Old. I saw James Brown in Mobile, Alabama when I was 9 years old. I begged my parents to take me. It was 1965. Good memories. Story 50, Daft Punk Discovery. Gorillaz Demon Days. Flight Facilities Live with Melbourne Symphony. The Avalanches Since I Left You. They Shed Introducing. Outcast Stankonia. Lewis Cole Nothing. Fleetwood Mac Rumors. Gregory Alan Isikoff That Sea The Gambler. Beck Odelay. Story 51, A Little Different But Alive 2007 by Daft Punk. It is a live concert, so it is really neat seeing how all the songs and remixes flow together in a long format. A very seamless experience and some iconic songs. Story 52, Kind of Blue Miles Davis. Take 5 Chet Baker. The Boatman's Call Nick Cave. And It's Still Alright Nathaniel Rateliff. Folk singer Muddy Waters. Figure 8 Elliott Smith. In the Aeroplane Over the Sea Neutral Milk Hotel. Songs of the Free Gang of Four. Faith the Cure. Ocean Rain Echo and the Bunnymen. Story 53. Daft Punk. Alive 2007. Aesop Rock The Impossible Kid. Bill Withers Still Bill. Stevie Wonder Songs in the Key of Life. Nirvana Nevermind. Silverstein Discovering the Waterfront. Story 54. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. You can do worse things with 35 minutes than discover one of Motown's most beautiful voices. Story 55. Rush, 2112. Foo Fighters, Echoes Silence Patience and Grace. Rise Against Revolutions Per Minute. Against Me White Crosses. Billy Joel Glass Houses. The Black Keys Magic Potion. Story 56. Madvillain Madvillainy. Aesop Rock, Impossible Kid. Queens of the Stone Age Songs for the Deaf. William Elliott Whitmore Animals in the Dark. Mark Lanigan Bubblegum. Story 57. Good Kid. Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. It is like Pulp Fiction in music form about a teenager living his life in Compton. Story 58. Santana Supernatural. U2 The Unforgettable Fire. Diggable Planets Blowout Comb. Of a Revolution Anytime Now. Stone Temple Pilots Tiny Music. Weezer Pinkerton. Smashing Pumpkins Siamese Dreams. Story 59. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. The Blue Album by Weezer. Everywhere at the End of Time Stages 1 through 6 by The Caretaker. Story 60. The Midnight Organ Flight by Frightened Rabbit is one of the best independent albums of the past 30 years. Urban Hymns by The Verve is an incredible, timeless, and more introspective Britpop album. Story 61. I had a similar question last year and decided to answer it by listening through Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. Most of the other answers to your post are included, plus many more. I have traditionally been mostly into rock and grunge, so it exposed me to a variety of soul, Motown, country, jazz, hip-hop, and electronic bands I would not have otherwise listened to. It has been a very enjoyable journey. After 18 months, I am on album 436, having started at number 1. I highly recommend it. Story 62. Go subscribe to Rick Beato's YouTube channel. He creates many top 10 and top 20 videos from different decades, organized by instrument, genre, and more. I regularly rotate his suggestions in and out of my playlist. Story 63. Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. Ang Lana del Rey Album. Hosier by Hosier. The Family Jewels by Marina. Strange Trails by Lord Huron. England Made Me by Black Box Recorder. Story 64. Beatles Revolver. Quite the album for 1966, and I think people will recognize how it influenced a lot of other music they have listened to. Story 65. Nirvana, Unplugged. King Cruel 6 Feet Beneath the Moon. The Stone Roses self-titled. A Tribe Called Quest The Low End Theory. Pulp Different Class. Cruanovin, Con Todo El Mundo. Story 66. X's Greatest Hits. Can anyone truly admit that they enjoy every song on a given album? There will always be at least one song that you skip or think is terrible. I don't understand people's fascination with albums. Playlists exist specifically so you can ignore the poor songs and only listen to the songs you enjoy. That said, Hybrid Theory is the answer. They are all great songs. Story 67. Many would say definitely maybe for Oasis, but overall I think What's the Story Morning Glory is the better album from top to bottom. If compilations count, I would even be tempted to put the Master Plan ahead of them all. Story 68. Sigur Rós. As a metalhead, I love that band and saw them in concert. It was the best concert ever. They played at the Greek Theater in Berkeley, California, and it started to rain, which perfectly fit their music. So good. Story 69. Highwayman I. incredible country album featuring Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson. American Idiot, I don't care what punk music elitists say about Green Day. This album is a masterpiece and the last great one the band really released. Paranoid classic Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. Help. Most Beatles fans say Abbey Road. I say, Help is their best in my opinion. By Dusty Road for anyone into old music. It is by Woody Guthrie and is solid despite poor audio quality due to being an 80-year-old album. Just about any Bob Dylan album. All of them I've listened to are solid. Story 70. For one of the greatest electronic albums, and my favorite for romantic moments, Massive Attack Mezzanine. Story 71, Hot Fuss by The Killers. Love Tap by Small Pools. Around the Fur by Deftones. Futures by Jimmy Eat World. Phantoms by Acceptance. Story 72. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie. Also Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. He is a musical genius. Story 73. For the younger crowd who might not have heard slightly older music. SGT. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, The Beatles. Lithium, Nirvana. The Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd. If I Should Fall from Grace with God, The Pogues. Story 74. Bob Dylan Bootleg Series Volumes 1 to 3. Pink Floyd, A Momentary Lapse of Reason. Pearl Jam vs. Eminem, The Marshall Mathers LP. The Beatles, Abbey Road. Janis Joplin, Pearl. Beastie Boys, License to Ill. Nirvana, MTV Unplugged in New York. Grateful Dead, American Beauty. Paul Simon, Graceland. The Velvet Underground and Nico. David Bowie, Changes. The Clash, London Calling. Story 75. Coheed and Cambria. The Color Before the Sun, to get a feel for their musical style. Then proceed to the rest of their albums and stay for the concepts. Story 76. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd is a must. The way it flows from start to finish is perfect. It is one of those albums you can play on repeat and still find something new each time. Story 77. Selfish Machines by Pierce the Veil. Every album by Pierce the Veil. How It Feels to Be Lost by Sleeping with Sirens. Story 78. A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders. Stankonia, Outcast. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick Lamar. Watching Movies with the Sound Off, Mac Miller. Story 79. The Beatles' White Album. Depeche Mode, Black Celebration. Death Cab for Cutie, Transatlanticism. Coldplay, Viva la Vida. Story 80. Paul Oakenfold. The Goa Mix, Cream Version. The Cure, Mixed Up. The Verve, Urban Hymns. Depeche Mode, Violator. Massive Attack, Blue Lines. The Prodigy, Music for the Jilted Generation. Pink Floyd, All. Fleetwood Mac, All. Story 81. Rio by Duran Duran to realize just how good early 1980s pop could be. Kick by INXS to realize just how good 1980s pop rock could be. Dirt by Alice in Chains to realize just how good 90s rock could be. Lateralus by Tool to realize just how good 2000s rock could be. Story 82. Operation Ivy Energy, self-titled on streaming. Nas Illmatic. Elliott Smith either slash or. Low Things We Lost in the Fire, Rest in Peace Mimi. Necrophagist Epitaph. Story 83. Voodoo by D'Angelo. Get Up With It by Miles Davis. Cookie. The Anthropological Mixtape by Michelle and D'Angelo. Story 84. The Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. The Cars' debut album. Michael Jackson, Thriller. Jack Johnson, In Between Dreams. Story 85. My selections are more modern and electronic compared to most of these replies, but these albums are masterpieces nonetheless. Above and Beyond Common Ground, 2018, tells a story about love's complexities, its ups and downs, and self-discovery when falling in and out of love. Andrew Bayer, In My Last Life, 2018, explores themes of love, loss, reincarnation, and immortality through the lens of love that transcends distance and lifetimes. Everything But the Girl Walking Wounded, 1996, explores the impact of trauma in relationships, moving on from lingering pain, and how it shapes us moving forward. The Midnight Nocturnal, 2017. With a variety of heartbreak ballads and encapsulating instrumentals, this album explores heartbreak and vulnerabilities. The tone is dark and foreboding, immersing you in a modernized 1980s-style neon cityscape. Others listed do not necessarily have a lyrical theme, but showcase versatility and mastery from a sound design perspective. Dosum, Dream Decoder, 2020. Diversion, Connection, 2018. Pendulum, Immersion, 2010. O5, Alchemy, 2020. Pola and Bryson, This Time Last Year, 2016. Story 86. Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. The first time I listened to it with headphones at 3 a.m., I felt like my soul left my body. Still unmatched. Story 87. I'm going to add The Nightfly by Donald Fagen. Listen with headphones or good speakers. Whether you enjoy the content and composition is almost irrelevant because of how crisp and perfect that album sounds. It is almost hypnotic. It is also my go-to with noise canceling while shopping at Costco. Story 88. In no particular order. Deished, Introducing. Portishead. Bexy Change. Spacemen 3 Sound of Confusion. The Chemical Brothers Further. The Streets Original Pirate Material. LCD Sound System. Kraftwerk. Computer World. The Stone Roses. Story 89. Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Radiohead in Rainbows. Elis Regina, O Bem do Amor. My Bloody Valentine Loveless. Story 90. Ministry Twitch. The Dusk. Fluke Risotto. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult Confessions of a Knife. New Order Substance. Level 42. The Pursuit of Accidents. Talking Heads Fear of Music. Talking Heads Remain in Light. Underworld Everything. The Chemical Brothers Surrender. Boniem Night Flight to Venus. Vieux Femme. Story 91. Take This to Your Grave or Infinity on High by Fall Out Boy. Not the usual band you see in these kinds of threads. But if you are the right age, these albums will still speak to you with their sound and lyrics. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.